What's going on, guys? This is Danny from Slow Restoration, and we are still working on the GMC Denali here. I said in another video that I was going to do the Corvette servo. This is the same day. It's still up in the air, but let's get right into that. Now, I have did this video before with the Corvette servo. Right here is the box that comes in, and of course we pull it out. Not really all that much to it. Try not to break that. So here's what you get in the kit. So we have this here. We're going to jump right into it. If you have not seen the video on that monstrosity, definitely go check it out. We'll ignore that for now. But the biggest complaint I had on the last video is you couldn't see what I was doing. I was trying to hold the camera and do stuff. So now we have a POV hat. I don't know if it's going to improve it that much because honestly, up in the car, you can't really see much anyway. It's kind of feeling for it. So we're going to give it a shot, see how it works. So this is the camera view. And of course, we got both hands free now. So looking at the camera, it's hanging right in front of my face. It looks like it's what I'm seeing, so let's jump right into it. And obviously, the first step, you need to get the car up in the air, some sort. We have a lift, so we're under it. We do have a light here. All right, so we have a light on. This shield, this heat shield is in the way. Two 10mm bolts. I already popped them loose. We'll go ahead and remove these. With those two bolts removed, the heat shield comes right out of the way. We'll set that over here. Probably should turn that way so it doesn't hit us in the head. So right here is the servo cover. We're going to take a pry bar. I don't know if you can see that or not. There is a snap ring groove. There's a couple cutouts. We're going to take a rag, maybe some air, clean that as good as we can on the outside here. And so we don't get contaminants as we pull that. With that cleaned off as good as we can, of course we have our drain bucket here right underneath because it will lose a little bit of fluid. We're going to take our pry bar, and all this is very gentle. I mean, we're obviously prying on the cat here. We don't want to damage that. We don't want to damage the transmission case or the servo cover. But as you can see, that pops right in. You can take your screwdriver and work this snap ring out. Again, pops out very easy, very little effort. There's a split in it. So now we can actually let that loose. Sometimes you gotta work it a little bit. Yep, there comes the fluid right in our pan. We'll let that drain for a second. All right, that's been draining for a while and it's still draining. So we're just gonna grab this cover here and gently work it back and forth. All right, so that one was a little bit sticky. You might have to do some prying. Just be gentle with it. Once you get it off, obviously you can pull the whole cover off here. We'll drain that, wipe it with a rag. Looks good. It's actually pretty clean inside. The fluid's really clean. This is a Jasper Trans, but I don't think they do the servo upgrade. All right, so we're going to grab the rest of this servo. There's a pin and a piston. Here's a piston we pop off. Here is the pin and the second apply piston. Trying to get it out without anything dropping. It's a little bit tight to get through here, but obviously it does come through. Let me set this down and I can get a second hand on that one. I like to set all this the way it came out back in the cover too. So we pulled that out that way. We're going to set it in that way. All right, now wiggle this out here. Some of them are easier to get out than others. I'm not sure what makes the difference. But some of them are a little bit tricky, and this one so far is a little bit tricky. Push this heat shield down a little bit. give us enough room. Yes, we can pull that right out. So that's what it looks like when it comes out. Wipe it off and take it over to our bench here. All right, so we'll just let that sit there and drain for a little bit. We have our parts here, new parts, old parts. Here's the snap ring. We'll make sure we clean that up and have it ready to go back in. Jasper likes to paint all of her stuff and it makes kind of a gooey mess. But there, we'll set that there. Here's the two sealing rings. Here's the O-ring that actually goes on there. Set that there. But first we have to disassemble this thing. It's fairly easy. All right, so obviously the cleaner we can keep this stuff, the better. Get rid of that piece of dirt. Wipe this down a little bit. But the first thing we're gonna do is actually, whoop, that didn't work. It slipped right on there. We are gonna push this spring down. There's a little E-clip that we're gonna pop off. You can push it down with your fingers. It's not that tight. The E-clip pops off here. We'll set that down and then we'll disassemble this. We'll set that right on top of the snap ring. Set that over there on our rag. This pin will now slide out. It's a little sticky. So we're going to slip this piston off. We'll set that here upside down. Alright, we got this pin out. We did have to tap it out, so it must have a burr. So we'll address that in a minute. We are going to set this right here. We can get to stay. Obviously there's fluid inside this thing. Try to keep yourself oriented on how all this stuff came out. This did stick through there, so the pointy side goes towards this steel washer here. And we do have to pop the snap ring out of there. Disassemble this because we have a replacement version of this. You can see how the size difference here and there, and that's one of the things that changes this. There's less volume to make the shift. So all right, so we have to disassemble this part of it too. So I have a pair of vice grips here with flat pads on it so we don't damage anything. We're just going to chuck it up like that and tighten up just a little bit so it takes the pressure off that snap ring, and then we can work that snap ring out. Let me orient that around a little bit differently. There we go. Get our screwdriver back behind that and go ahead and pull that snap ring out. With a smaller screwdriver, we can actually, there's a tongue there, we can get behind that. As you can see, we can pull that snap ring right out, and at that point we can just kind of work it out with our fingers. We'll set that right there, and then we can release this. And once we take that apart, we'll set everything upside down. So we'll clean all this mess up. The good news is we don't really reuse a whole lot. We reuse this metal washer that we have cleaned up, the spring here, the apply pin, this snap ring, and this little spring and washer along with that E-clip. But we have everything cleaned up. We're going to take our new parts now. As you can see, like I said, this one's drastically smaller. It actually fits inside there. So that's junk. We don't need it anymore. Flip it upside down. That's where this stuff's going to go. So we'll flip that up. That goes there. We'll take our vice grips here. Again, be gentle. Don't want to score anything. We'll go ahead, compress that. We can take our snap ring, which I did not clean up. Let me wipe that off quick. I think whoever built this trans probably never took this servo apart because it still had old burnt fluid inside, and the fluid in the transmission itself is extremely clean, but it is what it is. So we'll take this around here And again, we'll just work that right in. There's a groove it goes in, but it's round, so it doesn't index at any certain spot. This will make your gloves swell up, and I just got mine caught. So we'll take that. You can hear it pop right in. Now we can release this, and that part of it is done. Clean it off, make sure no more debris is there. All right, and with that deburred and cleaned up, it actually fits very nice now. We'll push that through. As you can see, fits nice now without gouging. So that's the way that goes back together. And of course, on this side, we get our spring, we get our washer, and then we get our snap ring. So we'll kind of orient that around. We'll put our snap ring there. We'll kind of push down, and you can just get that pushed down, and you can just get that started. Takes a little bit. Oh, it popped right on. That easy. So that is fully seated. It's free. You can lubricate that as you go. Wipe any debris. Make sure everything's extremely clean, sanitary. All right, so we can get some of these old parts out of the way. So now comes some of our sealing rings. This is going to go on the bottom part here. Overlaps just like that. The split there, it's got a tapered split. So that goes on there, kind of floats around. We'll lubricate that in a second. And then this one also goes on this bigger bore here, or the bigger groove rather. Goes right there. We'll just work that right around. And again, it's got a split groove there that seals as it goes down the piston, gets pressure on it. With that all put back together, we're going to take a little bit of fresh clean ATF fluid and lubricate these surfaces. Doesn't take much, just a tiny bit will do it. The piston surfaces here, the sealing ring surfaces, just so there's some lubrication on there when you put this stuff back together. We are going to grab the new second piece here, and that goes on this way. It's got a taper. It's got a taper there. So this bore, that sealing ring will go in that taper and then seat in the bore. So nice and gently we'll put that together, making sure the sealing ring goes in there without galling it. Try and go nice and square. There we are. Fits nice and tight. This system here actually didn't fit horrible. Usually when I change these, they fall right apart, and these must have had, these have, oh, that's interesting. So someone put O-rings on here instead of sealing rings. I don't know if that's a design change. Anyway, we're going back with what we got. So these do fit pretty snug. Usually when you take these old ones out, you turn that upside down and that will fall right off. But it is what it is. We'll set that there. This one is put together. The only other thing, well, this is going to go back in the transmission, obviously, like that. There is a spring still in the transmission, so we'll grab that and make sure that goes over the shaft before we slip it in. We might as well lubricate that O-ring too. All right, so we'll go back to the truck now, the transmission, and we'll slip this in. This still goes on, but it's usually easier to slip this on once it's inside the transmission. You can see a little bit of wear mark there, so that will actually go on the shaft this way and go towards that snap ring. but we'll leave that off for now until we get this assembly back in the transmission. So back under here, we went ahead and wiped that bore out, cleaned everything as good as we can so we don't get any contamination in there. We went ahead and pulled our spring out here too. So we'll slip that spring over this rod, and sometimes that does fall out. We'll just make sure that goes together as it should. So again, being nice and careful and gentle, we're just gonna, and again guys, if you can't see, I mean I can't see everything myself as I do it, so goes in there pretty easy, goes in the bore, and just a little push and it slid right in. So as you can see, that is spring loaded now against that spring that we just put on. Everything's together. So we'll wipe that out again, and we'll get our cover and prep out. We still have to put that second piece or that last piece on before the cover goes off. With that cleaned up and lubed, obviously we'll slip this back on. And again, the slight wear spot, the flatter side goes in the case on the shaft. There we go. All that looks good. And we'll just go over here and grab the cover, the servo cover housing. We'll finish cleaning it up. Like I said, they did put quite a bit of paint on here. These sometimes get corroded also, so we'll pop this O-ring out. We'll get rid of that. Goes in our pile of junk. Clean this up really good, especially on this groove here. We want to slide nice and smoothly into the case. Make sure there's no burrs or anything. Once we get that cleaned up, O-ring installed, we'll go ahead and grab some clean fluid here again, lubricate this bore just a little bit for that O-ring to slip on, and we'll lube this one up a little bit too, so it doesn't grab as it goes into the case. So with that lubed up, all this prepped, we'll take this and our locking ring and put this thing back together. All right, so we'll take and wipe all this down one more time. That all looks good. We'll take our servo cover, slip it up here. Again, trying not to hit anything or get any contaminants on there. That's located. We're good with that. Now we'll take our pry bar. What do we do with our pry bar? Here it is. It's on that giant 44-inch tall tire. Again, nice and gentle like. Yep. Top side still gotta go in, but there we go. You want them, there we go. So that's nice and smooth now. Now we can take our snap ring, slip it across there, and work it right around that groove. It actually goes in easy. I'm fumbling with it a little bit, but normally goes in pretty easy. It keeps grabbing my glove. There we go. All right, that's in there. We'll grab our screwdriver and pop it the rest of the way in. Actually, as soon as I stopped that, I pushed on it and it popped right in by itself. So again, as you can see, we can push in on it, but that snap ring has got it securely locked in place. So that's really it. All we have to do is put that shield back on, fire it up, top off the fluid, and we'll take it for a test drive. And as with the other video, I'm sure we're going to get some people that say, do not put a Corvette servo in a heavy vehicle like this. It doesn't need it. It's going to be harsh, uncomfortable. My experience, that's not the case at all. It just makes a quicker shift. So not even so much. It does firm it up slightly, but it just makes the shift, as you know, the transmission's telling it to go from first gear to second gear. It takes that time in between the gear shift and shortens it and makes it a lot more durable. So here's the parts that we can actually just throw away. I'm not saving them. These two pistons and the O-ring. Guys, obviously we're driving here. It's nighttime. I apologize for that. It just got late. So let's see how it does. Very good. Made a nice quick shift. Not overly firm. The rest of the gears were a little bit firm before, but now it works very good. That's the way I like them. A nice fast shift. I'd hate the slide in, and a lot of these things have that issue. The 1-2 shift is just mushy. It slides into gear. Sometimes it feels like it shifts twice, or it feels like it slips and then it catches. And 9 times out of 10, unless you really have bad internals in your transmission, it's just totally wore out, then that Corvette servo will help drastically. That's a wrap on that. Again, it fixed the trans. I assumed the trans was in good shape. It's just like, again, had that lazy 1-2 shift. It is a Jasper trans. I've ran in that before. They do not do the Corvette servo upgrade, and they have that mushy 1-2 shift. The fluid's clean, the transmission shifts, it does everything it should, and now it just does it better. So thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.